I became an actor very much because of my father. My father gave me one lesson, which was that you either play the truth of things or you play the quality of things. Quality meaning that you play what you expect on the page, what you've seen many times before, or you play the truth of things, which is that you dig a little deeper and you find those moments of dissonance, the absurdity of it all, the things that don't add up. But there's a real gift to building a character when you free yourself from that burden, and it's all just the absurdity of what it means to be human.
I want to ask you both. So how did this show find its way to you? How did you find your way into this show? I know, Ross, if you auditioned over Zoom, I think, right?
Yeah, yes. This was just another detective audition. I was doing a show in Montreal. This was a Zoom audition, and they terrify me.
Why do they terrify you?
Well, it's just, there's that screen, and it's a two-dimensional experience, and you're trying to connect with somebody, but you're meeting somebody for the first time. And I feel a little bit like my mom, when on FaceTime. All she ever shows me is the ceiling. And an audition doesn't really work if I just show the ceiling, but that's what I'd like to do. But for some reason, they gave me the part. I got word 2 weeks later that they wanted me for this thing, and it was this American TV show, and they were going to give me the lead, and I'd never done anything like that before. And then there was this chemistry read. They needed to find my love interest.
Yes, they did.
I'm so terrified of Zoom auditions that I volunteered to speak to all of the actresses beforehand, so that they would not have the experience that I had, that they would know the reader beforehand. So I reached out to everybody. Everybody was very happy to speak to me. Kristin Kreuk,
Save one.
on the other hand, we reached out to her, and we got a no. And so I thought that there must have been some miscommunication, so I went about it another way, and we still got a no. And so we met on Zoom, and I just assumed I'd be dealing with a diva. And here she is. Yeah.
Thanks for that introduction.
Yeah.
Is that how you remember it, Kristin?
That's definitely how that happened.
Okay.
I don't like meeting new people that much.
Same. I'm with you.
Really, and it's an audition. It was a chemistry read. I knew that I'd get a sense of him in the read. I kind of wanted it to be fresh and all of those things. So I didn't want to have a meeting beforehand. I didn't want to talk it through. I didn't want to talk about the scene. I didn't want to do any of those things. I just wanted to come in.
I wouldn't have done that, but you wouldn't know
because I wasn't there. He's very bitter
I'm holding
about
on to this.
This is a thing. But this actually came to me in 2021. The project. So Tina Pem and Kim Roberts, who are here somewhere, hi guys, brought this to me a while back when they were first working on it, before they had brought a whole bunch of people on board. And so I knew about it from a while ago. And then they came back again when the project was all put together. They had Fox and they had everything. And they asked if I would come out and audition and read for them. And I eventually said that I would do a chemistry read, and this is what happened. And I'm so happy that I did. It was such a joyful experience, and I loved working on it, and I love working with them. I've worked with them before, and yeah.
Fantastic. And there's definitely chemistry. I mean, we all saw the screening, right? So yeah, great stuff. So speaking of that, then I want to talk a little bit, because we are in an audience of your peers, of fellow actors. So I want to talk a little bit about prep. Prep for an audition, but then also prep for that first day on set. Mm-hmm. What does that look like for you? What goes into it?
I begin?
Yeah, you begin.
Oh gosh, prepping for an audition. Well, there's obviously you read the material, you get an initial reaction, a sense of what you imagine the character to be. This is really just scratching the surface, ultimately. I remember working with an acting coach who always insisted that you hold the pages in your hand when you're auditioning, so that people who were auditioning you knew that this was this was just you scratching the surface. This was not a finished deal. So this was, I was playing a carpenter in Montreal, a recent divorcee, and here I was trying to play a detective for an afternoon on this Zoom audition, but the journey really began when they gave me the part, and I read the books, and ultimately it's just a matter of interpretation, Listen, I became an actor very much because of my father. My father gave me one lesson, which was that you either play the truth of things or you play the quality of things. Quality meaning that you play what you expect on the page, what you've seen many times before, or you play the truth of things, which is that you dig a little deeper and you find those moments of dissonance, the absurdity of it all, the things that don't add up. Because as human beings, I did make that mistake when I was starting out, when you try and make sense of everything because everything needs to add up. But there's a real gift to building a character when you free yourself from that burden, and it's all just the absurdity of what it means to be human. But it's always an extension of yourself. Anyway, sorry, long answer.
That's a great answer. Mine probably won't be as interesting. When it comes to auditioning, I spend less time on auditions, obviously, than I do when I'm working on a show. I mean, I don't audition a ton, but when it does come in, I do. I mean, I read the material that's available, get a sense of what it is, try and build a little bit. For me, I need a bit of a character backstory just in my own head so I can kind of understand the emotional beats. So I build a bit of that. And then I kind of sometimes I just go on instinct. When I started working when I was 17, I started working professionally when I was 17, I had, done theater and stuff before that. I never really trained, and so a lot of it was just figuring it out on the fly, and I didn't get the training that I wish I had, so I didn't know the terms and I didn't know the things I was doing, and I just had to grapple together some sort of a process that made sense and worked for me. And so for auditioning, I kind of just pull on that instinctual stuff. Once I knew I was doing the show, I built a bigger backstory. I worked with, I don't know if Colleen's in here, but I worked with Colleen Basis also to build a sense of the character and where to go with her. And then, I don't know, I really feel like this character was defined in a large part by how she engaged in relationship to Alberg, because a lot of the scenes are with him and also with George. But that first scene that we shot, which is the date scene, kind of helped me figure her out. So it's weird. So there's the pre-process and the process within acting, which I feel like is for me, very instinctual.
Nice. So there's some really rich source material for you all to draw on for this show. And I'm glad, Ross, if you brought up the books, and you actually have sort of like a special connection, right, to the Alberg books. Is that
a connection that I wasn't aware of when I auditioned for this? But yes, my father was attached to a movie version of the first book in this series 30 years ago. The writer Ian Weir was working on that script. My father probably had a heavy hand in it, as he usually did. And they were shopping it around, and it I guess it never worked out. But yes, when I auditioned for this, and I described the character to my father, because my father had always been very involved in my work. He was always he was my champion. I mean, he was my biggest fan when I only had one, and he I am very much of an actor because of him, and when I described the character, he recognized him, and he asked me what it was, and I said, it's the Alberg series, and he said, I know those books, son, and so then I found out the whole backstory, and which is why, the first episode of this series is dedicated to him, because of all the ties that he's had before this became a TV show, and it's wonderfully absurd that I'm here, talking to you, that we've shot this thing. But yeah, somebody today said, maybe this was a love letter of your father to you, and I hope that it's also a love letter from us to my dad.
That's really, really moving. So I actually want to dive into your characters a little more and their dynamic and their relationships. What I appreciate is that I feel like they're very much going against certain tropes of what a detective is and I guess what a librarian is. So Kristin, let's start with you. How do you think Cassandra is going against the trope of, a mousy librarian, if you could call her that?
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe we have a misunderstanding about what librarians do and like what their profession is, because I think she feels like, I mean, librarians, it's a crazy degree. It's a really tough academic kind of choice. It's a technical degree. It's a very data driven. So they're really intelligent people tend to choose this path, but it's also people who want to engage in community. And so I think this idea of the mousy librarian is strange because really what they're doing is not only working with data and working with information, they're working with people. And so they're very people forward. And I think that Cassandra reflects that. She reflects somebody who is engaged in her community and really wants to make changes within it and understands how the library is a hub for that. It is a place where people can find information, of course, but it is also a place where people go when they feel unsafe, when they need a place to sleep if they can't sleep somewhere else. It is a place where you can help marginalized communities, and that's important to her. So that's more, I think, what we focused on is this idea that she is a driven career woman who is really, really passionate about changing her hometown. And that means that she is very communicative and very engaging. And I guess that's how we go against the trope. Yeah.
And explain to the youngins what a librarian does. I feel like
very important.
And then we'll explain to Rossif what a meme is. That's a whole other.
Doesn't know what a meme is.
That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, Rossif, how do you feel Carl is going against the trope of like the grizzled detective, seen it all?
Yeah, he was, as far as I was concerned, quite a refreshing character because he wasn't somebody who was burdened by all these demons. He's not somebody with a drinking problem and anger issues. And yes, he's a recent, he's just divorced his wife, the mother of his 2 teenage daughters. But he's his divorce failed because he chose to be silent. He chose to spare them the realities of what he saw because of his job. That silence cost him his marriage, cost him, the understanding of those who, loved him and he loves. But he's an unusual guy in the sense that he doesn't try and intimidate people with his badge, with his gun, with his uniform. Quite the opposite. He doesn't wear a uniform. He hates his gun. He's somebody who tries to get the truth out of people, out of this curiosity, this humanity, not so much by judging, but by trying to understand. And that idea really fascinated me. And he's also somebody who wears his heart on his sleeve, which makes him vulnerable enough to fall madly in love with that librarian, that little, yes. And he does fall in love.
I think there's such a charm to their relationship, and you can sort of see it right away. You see it in that first date. So what can you tell us about how their relationship is going to evolve throughout the season? What can you share with us?
Do you want me to? Well, I mean, I can share it all, really. You guys aren't going to say anything. No, it's, they're madly in love. They're 2 middle-aged people, and hopefully they got another half of a life to live, and hopefully it'll be together. The thing is that about love, it's as we know, a miracle when it happens. It's also a very fragile thing. And these are two individuals who have had their hearts broken, who have broken hearts. And with that history, of course, love is a scary thing. And so as they're walking on eggshells and trying to figure out how to best hold each other's hands, it's the story of that, maybe a tug of war, but trying to figure out how to be whole together. Not that notion of love being two people becoming one, which is what I grew up with, but two people becoming two people for the first time. And that's what really drew me to this show, was the idea that it would be an exploration of that, that never tiring subject, love. And so here we go. That's our adventure. Love. What?
Nothing. It's great.
What?
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 Yeah. What?
Nothing.
All right.
I don't know. What's the question?
Everything he said.
Perfect. Yeah.
Just how their relationship is evolving. How is Cassandra changing throughout their relationship?
It's an interesting dynamic because Cassandra is not interested in a cop. I think there are a lot of women who would go on a date with somebody and find out that they are the chief of police and it would be a problem. She is I would say she's an upstream focused person. She's a person who's looking for solutions to problems in communities from the root causes. And cops are really downstream solution people. They're fixing stuff that is problematic, that is already happening. And I think that there's a principled stance and also just a cop means a lot of things. It means someone who's shut down. I mean, these are the stereotypes. Someone who's shut down, somebody who can't relate, somebody who's got trauma and pain and all of those things. And it is also a dangerous job. And so their relationship is fascinating because she falls for a person who is completely outside of her logical mind. That it is not a person that she would select. And I think that I love that about this because I think love is often that way. You have an expectation or a plan or whatever it is, and it just doesn't happen like that. And she's grappling with that struggle through a bunch of this show. And so their relationship comes always from a place of care and love, but it doesn't mean that it's always going to work. And it doesn't mean that she won't be endangered and that there aren't real practical issues with their relationship, real differences in the way that they view the world and handle reality. And I like that because I feel like that's how our relationships are. We struggle with those things all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. This show is also, Kristin, bringing another Smallville alum to the show. Erica Durance has a role, and I actually just want to talk about this I talk about how a lot of us were introduced to you through Smallville as the iconic Lana Lang. There's such a huge fandom around Smallville still.
Yes.
There's a Smallville con.
Yeah, in
happening.
October. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, how do you regard that role now at this point in your career?
Yeah.
Do you ever watch old episodes?
God, no.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely not. But listen, I had a really fraught relationship with that role in that show. I really did. And it took me a long time to come to terms with it. And I learned how to stand up for myself working on Smallville. And it was a different time. You know, it was the early aughts. 2001, that show came out. I started working on it in 2000, I believe, or maybe 2001. But it was a show where it was all male producers, all male writers. There wasn't a woman in sight. And I was an 18-year-old girl, then 19. And I had no experience with this. I was floundering and I had no one to go to. And so the role itself is linked very much to my experiences on the show as I came into myself as an actor and as a woman. But as the years have gone by and I have distance and I've been able to do all these conventions, it's pretty incredible to be a part of a show that really moved people, that they watched with their parents, or that they watched with later with their kids, that made them, feel like they could live another day sometimes. And to be able to talk to people and see it from their perspective, get outside of myself, get outside of my own experience and see it as a whole. I mean, there aren't a lot of shows that do that for people, and you never know what's going to do that for people. And that's really special to be able to have that place in people's hearts. So I guess that's it's changed so much over the years, my relationship to Smallville and to Lana. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Again, we're, in an audience of your peers. So I'm curious, and Rossif, I think you may have touched on this a little bit, but like, what's the best advice, acting advice that you've gotten, or just like career advice in general? And then also, what's the worst advice that you didn't take?
I think move to LA. A lot of people say move to LA, and I never really did it. I don't know if it's the worst advice, but it's been lovely for me as who I am to be able to be at home and not do that. What?
I'm looking at you. I'm observing you, for Christ's sake. The best advice. I had an acting coach, Harold Guskin. He wrote a book, How to Stop Acting. And I was really struggling with this idea of embracing this as a career, because the notion of pretending to be other people for the rest of my life just seemed senseless. And when I told him that, and I really didn't want the classes to stop, because I loved the man, and his wife would put these bowls of yogurt and granola and honey together for me, and I just never wanted that journey to end. And I told him, I like acting, and I like you, and I love the granola, and I want to, but I don't think I want to do this for a living.
So much about you tonight.
Yes. But he's the one who told me, and that ultimately changed my life, and it's probably why I'm here. He said that I was wrong, that acting is not pretending to be other people. Acting is permission to be all the people that you could have been. And when you put it that way,
resonated.
It's just a turn of a phrase. But all it means is that you'll always get to be you. You just change your history, you change your upbringing, you change the house that you lived in, you change your address, you change your parents, you change all those things, but you never deny your own heart. And that experience, that journey of always embracing my own being and everything that I do, that's why I'm an actor. As far as bad advice,
that you didn't take, obviously.
You didn't take.
Oh yeah, bad advice. Acting is competition. Winning a scene. I remember working with an actor. He said, I'm going to win this scene. I just thought, does this air anywhere?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Why didn't anybody tell me this stuff?
They did tell you.
Okay, well, I'll change my vocabulary then. Yeah, I thought he was a prick. Can I say prick?
I think you just did, so yeah.
Okay, well, just, one of those. And because acting is not competition. Ultimately, if one person wins, it means the others lose. And if one person loses, then we all lose. I mean, this is the beautiful thing about telling a story together, is that we're doing it together. That's why I love to show up on a set, is because we're there with this gigantic group of misfits, and we're trying to tell a story. So if you're trying to win, then please stay home.
That's the best advice I've heard. That's great. I want to throw out a couple questions from our audience to you before we wrap things up. This one comes from Jonathan, and they ask, what makes a great agent-actor relationship?
Wow.
Keep calling.
keep calling your agent? Or
Well, yeah, they work for you. That took me a long time to figure out.
I've had my agent since I was 18 years old. I'm 41, and for us, it's been like friendship, honestly. But that's what I needed. I don't think that everybody needs a friend in their agent, but I did. So someone who really someone that you can communicate with, who listens, and who can come to understand who you are is, at least for me, what was important. Yeah.
And for you, what makes a great actor-agent relationship?
Well, it's just different now than it used to be. But I used to wait by the phone desperately for that thing to ring, and it never would. I mean, acting was very much like falling in love with a woman with whom anyway, I'm not going to go there, but she, there was a certain desperation there, and I felt like it was wrong for me to remind them to do their job, but ultimately they did need some reminding. At some one point or another, I did muster the courage to start calling, and now it has become a relationship of friendship and trust, and my brother's an agent. Actually, my son wants to be an agent. He's 8 years old. I don't know if that's a good thing, but he says he wants to make deals. Yeah, my son had a lemonade stand this summer. He actually managed to make quite a bit of money by squeezing lemons that he bought by recycling cans. So it cost him nothing. He's going to do just fine.
Well, I think this is a nice question to wrap things up on. Sarah asks both of you, what makes you the most happy these days?
I mean, I don't know. What makes me the most happy? I don't know. Home, family, love, those things.
It's a tricky question for me to answer. I was going to say to be with the people that I love. But I've just lost my father. Being with the people that I love seems to constantly remind me of the person that I lost. So, I don't know. I guess, being here, trying to sell the shit out of this thing.
And on that note, Rossif Sutherland, Kristin Kreuk, thank you so much for being here. Congrats on the show. Everybody check out Murder in a Small Town. Thank you so much.
Thank you.